Welcome back to my series of Harry Potter reviews. I figured this shirt would be appropriate for this movie since it has one new character that we're going to be talking about in this movie. We are back talking about the Harry Potter films. This is going to be the 5th Harry Potter film leading up to Fantastic Beasts 3, and that is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix takes place at Harry, Ron, and Hermione's 5th year at Hogwarts, and before Harry gets to Hogwarts, he uses magic in the presence of a muggle. Therefore, he is expelled from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. He is given a hearing at the Ministry of Magic that reinstates his enrollment in Hogwarts, and when he gets to Hogwarts, he learns that there is a new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher implanted into Hogwarts by the Ministry of Magic named Dolores Umbridge, the biggest bitch in the world. She refuses to teach the students defensive spells, so Ron and Hermione convince Harry to be a mentor and a teacher to students who are willing to learn defensive magic in preparation for the upcoming Wizarding War. Now, I have a little story to tell you about Order of the Phoenix. On opening day in 2007, I saw this movie twice. Yeah, I saw this movie twice in one day. That's how much I loved Goblet of Fire. I had some friends that wanted to see it in the morning, so we're like, all right, well, let's go see it in the morning at like a matinee. And then my mom and my brother said, well, we want to go see it too. And I said, hey, I'll go see it with you too. And they said, well, you just saw it this morning. And I said, I don't care. So we went and saw it again, and to honestly take what is easily my least favorite Harry Potter book and cut out all of the unnecessary filler in that book until the very end. They take the longest book and streamline it into one of the shortest Harry Potter movies. I still consider it the shortest because I consider Deathly Hallows Parts 1 and 2 one movie. I'm going to say second shortest just because there are 8 Harry Potter movies, but to me, the shortest movie, for the sake of these reviews, second shortest movie. They were able to figure out the through line that connected all of the events to Harry and his journey and cut out all the unnecessary stuff in the book that didn't pertain to him. And I think that this movie is fairly underrated in that regard. I think a lot of people regard this as one of the more boring Harry Potter movies because a lot really happens throughout the movie. I don't want to say it's an uneventful movie. It's more of a slow-moving movie compared to the events of The Goblet of Fire, which is like a fantasy action film. Still one of my favorite Harry Potter movies. But I think that was necessary. I think we needed to take it back a little bit and be a bit more focused as to what Harry's journey actually pertained at this part in the story. Crafting the shortest movie out of the longest book is definitely a daunting task. What do you have to omit? What do you have to keep in? What is on the borderline? Like, do we cut this or do we leave it in? For instance, they could easily have cut Grawp out of this movie. I think that whole Grawp scene screws with the pacing of this movie a little bit, but it is essential to part of the story of the movie and the book itself. So it has to be in there. So I have to give a lot of praise to Michael Goldenberg, who was able to take the longest book and adapt it into what was one of the shortest Harry Potter movies and actually was able to craft a pretty solid narrative around all of the noisy filler that was in the book that I just did not care about, and I was always worried about that. One of the things I did want to see in Order of the Phoenix was Ron playing Quidditch. We get to see that in the Half-Blood Prince movie, but we never get to hear the famous chant, "Weasley is our king! He never lets the quaffle in!" Oh man, I wish that they had those in the movies. But let's talk about some characters for a minute, some new characters, because there are 2 characters that I hate with all my guts, but man, they're so well written. One of them being this lady, Bellatrix Lestrange. Oh, the more you learn about her, the more you know she's loyal to the Dark Lord. Man, she is like Voldemort's like right-hand lady. I love how Neville comes face to face with her in this movie because she's the one who tortured Neville's parents with the Cruciatus Curse. Her escape from Azkaban prison, that entire scene is like, that's like straight out of a horror movie. She's like licking the dark mark on her arm and like laughing maniacally. I'm like, the fuck did we just walk into? Not to mention Azkaban prison is in the middle of an ocean. Talk about the other character, Dolores Umbridge. This bitch. My God, I thought Bellatrix was evil. Like, there is a difference between evil and being a bitch. Umbridge is the definition of being a bitch. And to make matters worse, they even gave her her own theme song.
Just one question, dear. You've been in this post how long, exactly? You applied first for the Defense Against the Dark Arts post, is that correct?
Yes.
But you were unsuccessful?
Obviously.
Oh my god, it's stuck in my head now. Why did I start humming it? Oh no. Why? Oh my god, I hate this lady. She's coming up with all these ridiculous rules like, oh, students cannot be within 6 inches of each other. It'll be like 2 people making out. She'll just walk by them and like separate them by using a spell from her wand. She'll use a spell to tuck in people's shirts. Like, come on, like let people live their lives. They're teenagers, for Christ's sake. And she refuses to teach the students defensive magic because she's like, oh, who said anything about defensive magic? She has an aptitude for the color pink, okay? Whew. And I'll just say this, I hate the color pink, all because of Professor Umbridge. Leave it at that. One character that is introduced that I absolutely love, and I'm glad she's in the rest of the Harry Potter movies, is Luna Lovegood. Oh my god, what a cool character. She's weird, she's unique, she's a bit nerdy, she's a bit awkward. She fits in with the Harry Potter group, just that group of people, and I love that she is actually with them at the end, and I believe that was in the book as well. In the Department of Mysteries trying to find the prophecy, and she actually has this really heartfelt scene with Harry early on in the movie where Harry sees these creatures called Thestrals and only he and her can see them because they have experienced or witnessed death.
Your feet, aren't they cold?
Bit. Unfortunately, all my shoes have mysteriously disappeared. I suspect Nargles are behind it.
What are they?
They're called Thestrals. They're quite gentle, really, but people avoid them because they're a bit
different. But why can't the others see them?
They can only be seen by people who've seen death.
So, you've known someone who's died then?
My mum. She was quite an extraordinary witch, but she did like to experiment, and one day one of her spells went badly wrong. I was 9.
I'm sorry.
Yes, it was rather horrible. I do feel very sad about it sometimes. But I've got Dad. We both believe you, by the way. That he who must not be named is back, and you fought him, and the Ministry and the Puppet are conspiring against you and Dumbledore.
Thanks. Seems you're about the only ones that do.
Don't think that's true. But I suppose that's how he wants you to feel.
What do you mean?
Well, if I were you-know-who, I'd want you to feel cut off from everyone else. Because if it's just you alone, you're not as much of a threat.
That scene is one of the best scenes in any Harry Potter movie. It just boosted the friendship of those 2 characters significantly and actually made you have some sympathy for Luna. Some of the pacing towards the second half can be a bit rough. I always know that we're getting towards the end because I know how the characters are dressed at the end, but I always forget that scene with the centaurs and they take Professor Umbridge away and Grawp is used as the diversion. I feel like that's the scene I was talking about earlier that I think screws with the pacing of the movie a little bit. So the movie does feel a bit longer than it actually is because of some scenes like that. I'm also not a huge fan of the scene transitions at some points. The scene transitions with like the newspapers and like the headlines on the newspapers, I understand they're used as passages of time. It's almost like it's like a substitute for the cross dissolve. But for me, that didn't necessarily work. I kind of wanted to see some of those events play out. Like at the end, it's just like, oh, Umbridge fired, Hogwarts headmaster reinstated. It's like, oh, okay, well, couldn't we have just seen that? There are moments like that in the movie that do bother me. It's also not as humorous as the previous Harry Potter movies. And I think that is due to a different screenwriter. This is the only Harry Potter movie not written by Steve Kloves. It's written by Michael Goldenberg. Maybe he didn't know how to weave in humor as well as Steve Kloves did. Maybe it could just be me. Maybe there is a lot of humor in this movie. It's just spread out more throughout the movie rather than being in some clusters like it was in the previous movies. But I think Steve Kloves does a good job with the humor. Michael Goldenberg, I bet, was brought on. This is just me thinking. But I have a feeling he was brought on because he was able to focus more on Harry's journey, and he was able to better omit scenes from the book that weren't necessary for the movie than Steve Kloves was. There is one change from the book that I absolutely love, and it makes more sense within the universe itself. In the book, when Harry and some of the other students go into the Department of Mysteries and they get the prophecy and they're being chased by Death Eaters like Lucius Malfoy and Bellatrix, and they have that whole battle inside the Ministry of Magic, in the book, Neville breaks the prophecy, and later on we find out that Voldemort gets pissed at Lucius Malfoy for breaking the prophecy, even though that never happened. So it didn't really make that much sense in the books when Voldemort got mad at Lucius Malfoy. Now in the movies, it's actually a good reason why Voldemort is pissed at Lucius Malfoy and really starts to question his loyalty, because Lucius is the one who breaks the prophecy. And the prophecy states that between Harry and Voldemort, one must kill the other for the other to live. And so now that Lucius breaks that prophecy, it makes him a disgraced character, and his loyalty to Voldemort is questioned. And that's a change that I've always loved about the Order of the Phoenix. The entire ending of the movie, the last third act, the Department of Mysteries, the battle between Voldemort and Dumbledore, and everybody finally coming to their senses that Voldemort is back, because Harry, for the most of this movie, is pissed off. He's angry. He's really questioning who his friends are, because people are questioning him about Cedric Diggory's death. They're creating false stories about it. That bitch Umbridge even says that Voldemort coming back is a complete lie, and like, why would you disbelieve Harry? He's the one who witnessed it in person, just because he's the one who saw it. But finally, at the end, the Minister of Magic sees Voldemort back, and he's like, oh shit, maybe we should actually do something. This is also a movie for me where I feel as if Michael Gambon still hasn't really nailed the role of Dumbledore. It's not until Half-Blood Prince where I feel like he settled in a lot, and that's actually not a good thing, because if you're the replacement for Richard Harris and you're now 3 movies into your tenure as Dumbledore, 5 movies into the franchise, that's a bit of a red flag, but luckily Half-Blood Prince fixes that for me. But all my problems aside, this is an underrated Harry Potter movie, in my opinion. I really like Order of the Phoenix. I think it gets too much flack for not including some things in the books that people wanted to see, but those things that people wanted to see just weren't relevant to the plot. It was all filler. I remember reading that 875-page book, and I remember saying to myself, 400 pages of this book could have been cut. And luckily, they were able to streamline it into a movie that focused solely on Harry's journey and how he grows as a character at this point in time, and what the future of the franchise is actually going to hold, while his friends help him get to that point. That's what I love about Order of the Phoenix. So I'm going to give Order of the Phoenix a B+. I feel like on a lot of people's lists, Order of the Phoenix is going to be a lot lower. For me, it's up higher a little bit. I think it's about time Order of the Phoenix gets the love that it deserves. The movie, not the book, because the movie is way better than the book. So stay tuned very soon for my review of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies somewhere.